Tropical development chances only grow higher for the week ahead. We'll look at where the two development chances could occur and the potential impacts for your area. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Sunday. Hope you're doing well. Want to welcome back all of our returning viewers. If this is your first time tuning into the channel, welcome to Meteo Mundo. Coming up in this video, we're going to talk about a very active weather day across our area on this Sunday, and then deep dive into the tropics. Two different areas I'm monitoring. You can easily see behind me here at the Hurricane Center has highlighted an area for portions of the Caribbean and into even the Turks, the Caicos, for the opportunity for development as we move through the week. As always, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. You have a specific question about the forecast, you can drop it down there as well. First of all, take a look at our surface analysis. There's a lot going on right now. We have three different tropical waves, one in the Western Caribbean, kind of on the east side of that Central American gyre, really flaring up some storms at the hour. We have another one moving through the Lesser Antilles, and then our invest area, which is part of that orange that you saw with the potential for development as we go through the week across the Atlantic and into the potential eastern side of the Caribbean. We do have a weak frontal boundary here, which is also promoting some showers and storms, and then a little trough extending into the Bahamas, which has really ramped up some activity today as well. This is our broad infrared satellite imagery, the live lightning data here at Meteo Mundo. Let's get into it. We'll start off with what's happening in Jamaica at the hour. Just a few isolated showers and storms there. We've had a little bit better concentration on the far northwest side of the island for today. Montego Bay area, portions of St. James and Hanover parishes. Otherwise, it's been relatively quiet here. But again, big time lightning developing right offshore. So if you live in Montego Bay, the northwest side of the island, let me know in the comment section below. Again, if you caught some of these heavier showers and storms, still the opportunity for more rain to develop across the island late on this Sunday and even into the evening hours here, because you guys are just on the northeast side of an abundant amount of moisture. Look at how widespread the storms are right now across Cuba. I mean, they are just getting going basically island-wide. Look at the lightning count in just the past 15 minutes, which has grown to over 600 lightning strikes in this area, in this view, again, in just the last quarter of an hour. Showers and storms have been scattered, but they've been heavy at times over Little Cayman and Cayman Brac, back over to Grand Cayman. You can see that rich, deep red there on the infrared imagery. That's some pretty heavy rain, big ball of lightning there just to the western side of Grand Cayman. We'll go over to the Bahamas now, where it's been very active on the northern side of the islands for today. Not as far north as Walker's Key or Grand Bahama. They've had more skirting showers than anything, but from the Abacos to Andros, New Providence, Nassau, and Eleuthera back towards Cat Island. Look at those thunderstorms here at the hour. Switch over to our radar data out of this area, drop off the SAT data. And again, you can just see the clusters of storms mainly kind of slowly working their way east. I'm sure on this Sunday, it's brought some boaters back into port a little bit earlier than they wanted to. So the south side of the Abacos, north side of Eleuthera towards Dunmore Town, towards Nassau, San Andros, and Andros Town on the island there of Andros. And again, some storms have even developed into the central side of the Bahamas as well. Back over to the satellite imagery, Cat Island, San Salvador, Rum Key, back over towards Exuma, Long Island as well. Again, all with a few showers and storms developing at the hour. Even back down towards Matthew Town here on the far southeast side of the island, we've had a few storms, and then relatively quiet right now for the Turks and the Caicos. On over to our friends in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We've had a few storms develop very late in the day. And again, that orange area is just our potential tropical development zone. So I'm going to drop that for now. We're going to deep dive into that coming up. But you can see a few storms have swung into the Dominican Republic at the hour. Again, fair amount of lightning. It's been relatively quiet in Haiti for today. We've had a few storms really going gangbusters in the central and the western sides of Puerto Rico. Again, look at all of that lightning there. Aguadilla, and then moving off towards the Mona Passage in between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. What do you say we take a live look at the radar there out of Puerto Rico, bring that on, and you'll see the showers and storms. Now, we've had a nice little cluster of storms in the central side of the island. They're beginning to wind down, but Uti Alto on over towards Orocovis. Apologize, not exactly pronouncing that right, but again, we've had a few scattered showers and storms in the interior sections, and then most of the storms at the hour have worked their way west across the Moto Passage. If they hold together, they'll try to get back towards the Punta Cana area. So if you live on the eastern side of the Dominican Republic, you'll see some storms off towards your west. It's been a relatively quiet day today on over towards our friends of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, back over to the satellite imagery. I'm going to throw on the visible satellite imagery as well. And again, we'll put that back in motion for you guys. Mainly quiet here. Again, there's been a few lightning strikes off towards the south, and we're trying to rotate in some storms. You can clearly see that what this broad mid-level low is producing. So you have this tropical wave, and then you have this spin in the Eastern Caribbean. It's not going to be anything tropical, but it is trying to ramp up a few showers and storms at the hour. We've had some passing rain for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, St. Bart's, Saba, St. Martin, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Guadeloupe. We've had better storms today for Dominica, Martinique, on over towards St. Lucia. Again, passing showers, but some heavier rain. You live in these areas, let me know. Hopefully it's cooled things off. A lot of you have told me how hot it's been across the Lesser Antilles the last few days. Few spotty showers, but again, some of them could be heavier at times for Barbados. A little bit isolated in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for today. And you can see that the cloud coverage is going in two different directions. You have low-level winds that are mainly out of the east, but also some of the coastal rain trying to come off of South America and get over towards Trinidad and Tobago. So the two different wind directions are creating some lift in the atmosphere and allowing some showers and storms to develop in those areas. Let's talk about how wet it's been over Central America and the Yucatan. And again, my friends in the ABC Islands have been relatively dry. But this, of course, is in part to our Central American gyre and the potential for tropical development in the Western Caribbean. Again, I mentioned it in yesterday's video. The one thing I was very confident on is it's going to be a very wet forecast in this area over the next 3 to 5 days that could lead to some heavy rain and some flooding potential. Look at this ball of storms just off of the Panama, Costa Rica coastlines. This is going to try and work its way back inland late on this Sunday, even into Sunday evening. Some of this won't make the coastline, but there could be some very heavy rain. Panama City towards San Jose. It's been more scattered in nature for most of Nicaragua and Honduras on this Sunday, although on the northern coastal islands of Honduras towards Roatan, we've had some passing showers and a few lightning strikes there. We'll get some rain to try and push into the coastline of Belize. Mainly just some cloud coverage, but there could be a few showers for San Pedro, Belize City, and Dangriga. It's a little bit more prominent right now up in Quintana Roo from Chechemal, especially towards Tulum, with showers and storms developing there towards Cancun and Cozumel at the hour. And again, cloudier skies, but you can clearly see all of the rich tropical moisture that is in play here, and just gangbuster lightning right now in the far northwest side of the Caribbean over Cuba and then back into the Bahamas. Time to get into the tropics, friends, and as we do so, again, quick payback. If you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button for me right now by liking this video, helps out the channel more than you think. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you want these daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you want these tropical updates, you found your home here at Meteo Mundo. Thank you for subscribing, sharing this with your family and friends, and also, of course, finding ways to support the channel as well. Okay, so let's get into the tropics, and this will also come into part with the rain chances in our area for the week ahead, because they are going to go hand in hand. There's many areas that are going to have the opportunity for some potential tropical development in your area and or some heavier rain. Now, you clearly see the orange zone here from the Hurricane Center, 40% chance. So that's gone up relatively quickly with a fast-moving invest area in the central of the Atlantic. We're going to deep dive into this coming up. The first area I want to talk about still doesn't have a designation from the National Hurricane Center, and that's in the western side of the Caribbean, but it still bears watching for what could try and potentially develop here in the Western Caribbean. Now, the first thing again is it is going to be a very heavy rainmaker regardless of development. We're going to get some broad spin continuing to develop and lift north with our monsoonal trough, which is going to bring some heavy rain and storms. But still, the GFS model and even the European model has at least hints of something tropical trying to develop in this area. So let's take a look at that. We'll deep dive into this area, and then I promise we'll deep dive into the area here that could be impacting the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands as well. But first things first, we'll kind of pick up on what we talked about yesterday. Now, the first thing that you're going to see is on the GFS deterministic model, we still get a system to develop. So one of the large global model still has the potential to wrap up a tropical depression, tropical storm, could be on the higher side here. Now, just like the last 2 days, so this is the third day in a row where we do have the GFS basically pulling this quickly west and either back into places like Honduras or Guatemala or Belize or potentially up towards Quintana Roo. At the same time, and I'll show you this with the winds, there is a cold front, and you can clearly see this slipping back into the northern Gulf of Mexico. That may act like a shield and try and keep whatever tries to develop here in the Northwest Caribbean from getting as far north as the Gulf, though I'll show you that some of the ensemble members from the GFS still have that happen. This is going to be a fast-moving front, and if this takes some time to develop here through the week, maybe it slips kind of underneath it, getting into the Southwest Gulf, and we'll go from there. But, the bottom line is that this is going to be a large area of showers and storms regardless of development. So, if you live in places like Panama and Costa Rica, Nicaragua and Honduras, especially the Caribbean sides of Guatemala and Belize and the Yucatan, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, get ready for what could be some very prolific rain, especially across the Yucatan and Central America. If this dives far enough west quick enough, we may not get a ton of rain for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, but we'll just see how it goes. Certainly higher chances overall, and could be some very wet weather. So you can clearly see this spin, guys. I mean, it's clear as a bell. The GFS deterministic basically drives it through Mexico, and we'll see if any peace can kind of last in the Southwest Gulf. But again, this is still just one model run, but this is now 3 days in a row where we had a solution very similar here on the GFS where that does develop just basically off of the Nicaragua-Honduras coastlines and it kind of rides the Honduras coast back inland. Let's switch over to the winds out of this. So again, this is going to be the GFS deterministic model. These are going to be your surface winds. Now, a few things that we're going to be talking about here coming up. First of all, we still get development here off the coast. So let's be clear, the GFS model does have tropical development in the Western Caribbean, and this would be basically on Thursday. Today is Sunday the 13th. So as we get into Wednesday the 16th, into Thursday the 17th, you'll start to see that spin develop. And again, these are surface-based sustained winds. So if I pause it here and we query this area, we do have winds that would support a tropical depression or even a tropical storm. But it does get a little bit stronger from there. You can see the wind profile here as we get into the wee hours of Friday morning would support a very solid tropical storm basically off of the Honduras coastline. Then from there, that spin moves quickly inland with some fresh winds for Roatan, coastal Guatemala, obviously the northern side of Honduras, and the Yucatan Peninsula as well. So we do still have tropical development on the GFS model out of this. Now at the same time, do you see how there's a very large wind profile here in the Gulf of Mexico? That's the cold front coming in. So look to the top of your screen, watch the front come in. You can see the winds there, and that might help to push this storm back west rather than allowing there to be an envelope to slip north. If that development is a little bit later in time, there could still be a window to slip into the Gulf of Mexico. But please note that if you live in these areas, despite the fact that there's still not an area from the Hurricane Center highlighted, we have to at least assume that there's a plausible chance that we get a potential tropical system in this area. So if we look at this on the European model, I just showed you the GFS. This is the chance of the European model for tropical depression development in the next 7 days. It picks up on it as well, up to around a 50 to a 60% chance. So you have it clearly developing on the GFS deterministic, and the European model still feels there's a decent chance for development here, again, kind of hugging the Central American coast and into the Yucatan, and obviously our secondary area, which we're about ready to jump into, also has a pretty good chance on the European model for the northern half of the Lesser Antilles, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and into the Turks and the Caicos. So here are my thoughts on what's going to be happening in the Western Caribbean, okay? Have a high confidence that we're going to get a large area of some very heavy rain. So some flooding concerns for the week ahead. Have a low-medium confidence of a tropical depression or a storm forming by mid to late week. And then a very low confidence if that does develop, where it goes. We'll look at some of the ensemble members coming up, but right now it does look like it would probably try and move back into Central America or the Yucatan, but there are some other solutions that we'll take a look at coming up as well. So again, you live in these areas. Heavy rain is coming in most spots with the potential for development of tropical nature. Now, if we take a look at the heavy rainfall here, this is off of the GFS model. We'll look at the European model coming up. This is just through basically early Friday. You can clearly see how much rain could be developing and then trying to move inland after that. So if I take this out just a little bit longer in time, so that would be the 18th. If I take this all the way out to the 20th, and this would just be a snapshot, you can now clearly see that the GFS model is painting on in some areas 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 inches of rain. Again, in millimeters, it's 1 inch is 25 millimeters, so 10 inches of rain would be 250 millimeters. And you can clearly see there is a lot of 4 to 6 or 100, 150 millimeters of rain, or much higher than that in some spots here of Central America and the Yucatan based on the GFS model. We would certainly get some rain for the Cayman Islands, 3, 4, 5 inches. Maybe Jamaica gets 2 or 3 inches here, but the heaviest rain would be back into Central America in portions of the Yucatan Peninsula. So that's that area, okay? Now, the one area that the Hurricane Center has clearly highlighted is our invest out here, okay? This is still invest 94L, and you can see it out here. Not much is happening with it at this point in time. We don't expect there to be development in the short term, but starting here the next couple of days, we could have a fast-moving system with a 40% chance of development now, and this orange area does encompass areas from Dominique north in the Lesser Antilles, includes all of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then into the Dominican Republic. So let's take a look how that could play out. We'll start again with the GFS model, loop that back up here over the next week or so ahead. You can clearly see the GFS model spins this up as well. It's a little bit weaker, but we are going to get the opportunity here as we get into Thursday and Friday for a very fast-moving system. Now, again, let's be clear. When I zoom this back out, over the first few days, you see absolutely nothing here out of the invest. It is once it gets into that orange zone on Wednesday where we do finally start to see something moving in. So if you live, again, on the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, this is something I'll be monitoring all week long. Here is Thursday night and then into Friday. And here it comes on the GFS model. Now, which is very interesting. First of all, this is extremely unusual that you have an invest this far east, this north in latitude, which might actually be trying to go south of west for the next few days. Typically, these things like to continue to gain latitude, especially this time of the year, this far into the central Atlantic, rather than actually curving south to begin with. But that is the potential here, and you can see that on the GFS. Of note on the GFS as well, it does bring this directly over the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and then actually drifts it south and west, south of Hispaniola as we go into early the next week. Now, of course, this is just one run, but you can clearly see that bobble back south and west at the end, potentially influenced again by some northerly winds coming in off of a front here. It is October. We start to get some of those north winds turn with these cold fronts coming in through the southeast United States. So that would be an extremely interesting solution. But again, if you live in the Lesser Antilles and you live in the Virgin Islands and you live in Puerto Rico, something I'll be monitoring for the week ahead. Again, the Hurricane Center is highlighting that, and they have a 40% chance. These are the winds associated with it as well. You can clearly see it begin to try and spin up as a very small storm Thursday and into Friday. So here you go. This is going to be late Thursday and into Friday. Let's take a look at the wind profile with this. And again, we would probably have here, and these are sustained winds, a tropical storm. So there's the potential to have Nadine here or maybe Nadine out there. If you see the GFS model on early Friday morning, we could potentially have two active systems, one hugging the coastline of Nicaragua and Honduras, and one trying to move into the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. If we follow this out from here, as we go through Friday, you can clearly see that it will kind of get close to the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then down towards the Dominican Republic. We'll see how that plays out. But that is, if I put the development zone back on here, the orange area, You can kind of see the outline. That's all within that development region from the National Hurricane Center. So again, timing of that, late Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday for the areas that I just mentioned. This is the European model deterministic for early Saturday morning, okay? We have some blues here. We have one that's even farther north, okay? So the European model is picking up on this, not extremely strong. The European model really doesn't have much in the Western Caribbean, okay? And again, on the deterministic model. But when we look at the ensemble members, which again are members of the parent model, we'll start with the GFS, which still is more robust in the Western Caribbean, okay? So I'm gonna let this loop a couple of times. Instead of just pausing it, we'll let it loop up. Not expecting anything through at least Tuesday. The first signals on the GFS model kind of come on Wednesday, and you can see some of that developing here, and then slowly kind of working its way west. But on some of the members that are a little bit slower, it does either try and pull it over the Yucatan into the Southwest Gulf or slide up a little bit farther into the Western Gulf of Mexico. So hopefully there's a shutoff valve, if you will, for the Gulf Coast states, but we'll see how that plays out. Now on the GFS, for the area the Hurricane Center is highlighted in the Atlantic, we'll watch that come in through again as we get into Thursday, Friday. You'll start to see a few of the members pick up some areas of weak development here, all right? Right there. But if we flip-flop it to the European model, it's going to be a complete opposite for what it favors for development. We do have one or two members developing a system in the Western Caribbean, and you can clearly see that on the European model. Not many, so it doesn't have a lot or a high likelihood of development here in the Western Caribbean, but it does have a lot of rain. However, it is more robust on the system coming closer to the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. All of these that you see at the end are in association with that. You still have some that are well north of the islands. You have a couple that come over the islands, and then you have this one rogue ensemble member which really drives it very fast towards Jamaica. I would discount that one at this point in time, but you can clearly see the European model is favoring the development there, Northern Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, maybe the Dominican Republic, maybe the Turks and the Caicos as we get into late next week, okay? European rainfall totals will show you that regardless of development here, it is going to get really wet, right? So it's just a really wet forecast for the central and the western side of the Caribbean. This is through the next 7 days. Look at all of these areas that are deep red. I mean, I'm talking about all of the Caribbean coast of Central America and the Yucatan, Cuba, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, portions of Haiti, a lot of the Bahamas as well. 4, 5, 6+ inches of rain. The highest total on the European model, bottom right-hand side of your screen, is over 16 inches of rain. So if you live it again in these zones, just get prepared for some heavy rainfall and the potential for some flooding rains as well. It will then all be very dependent on the track of this next system, how much rain we get in the Lesser Antilles and portions of the Greater Antilles as well. Now, obviously, this is going to come along kicking up some surf and sea conditions. That's the cold front coming in. You can clearly see that the winds turn out of the east and try and drive the system in the Western Atlantic back again over Mexico. If it's a fast enough moving system. If it's too slow, we might lose those winds and it might allow this to slip up. But I think that right now, the higher chance is that this pushes back into Central America or the Yucatan. Then obviously we would watch out for rougher surf and sea conditions coming back in with the next potential development here in the Lesser Antilles. We're still going to get some fresh winds in the Bahamas. You can see that coming in. And so we could have some near double-digit wave heights, especially in the open waters, even for all the Bahamas, the Turks and the Caicos, northern side of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, the Virgin Islands, and maybe some nice long period swells for the Lesser Antilles, and some of that could even be on the western sides of the island. So for boaters, it is going to be a very active forecast because we have those two areas and then this cold front coming in, which is going to bring some fresh winds to the Gulf of Mexico and off the western sides of the Atlantic as well. A lot to talk about, friends. You know I'm going to keep you updated. I appreciate you finding us across all of our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. Send me a picture or video at mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Again, 2 different areas to be monitoring. You know I'll keep you updated on that. Thank you for liking and subscribing here to Meteo Mundo, and I'll be back tomorrow with all the newest information. Till then, you have a great one. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.